Altenberg in Saxony. Round 6 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. We are one of the toughest drivers tracks on the planet, and they've thrown in a little bit of real winter as well. It's a snowy afternoon here at Altenberg. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to our coverage of this 6th of 8 World Cup race weekends. The final shakedown for everybody before we head to the World Championships. Martin Haven, and delighted to be joined again by Elizabeth Meyer to talk about this track. And Liz, we said this in the men's competition, we will say it until we pass breath for the final time. This is such a tough track to master.
It is definitely very, very tricky and notoriously hard. It's a long start for these athletes, so it's going to feel like it's a marathon for these athletes. As they go through the top bit of this corners, they need to relax and chill and let the sled speed up as they prep for this tricky Omega, this tricky corner 4. We're going to see some athletes tap and scorpion as they head into corner 5, into this top labyrinth where they're going to need to relax and get ready for 9, which is going to put them into this really, really long straightaway, which sets them up for another notorious corner, Kreisel. Kreisel means circle in German, and it's exactly what this curve is. You'll see the athletes getting high and low in the corner. 11 and into 12, we've seen some athletes get bumped on that left side into a quick 13, into big 14, which puts us into an uphill section. Lots of skidding and tapping we've been seeing here, into these final big left-handed corners where the athletes need to control their sled and get it across the finish line as fast as they can.
As John Morgan always says, this place is like Darlington in NASCAR. The track too tough to tame. It does have a reputation, doesn't it? I mean, it's maybe not quite as noisy and bubbly a changing room before a run in Altenberg as it would be, you know, in a week's time where we're in St. Moritz, or 3 weeks' time where we're in Innsbruck. It's got a certain rep, this place.
It definitely does. And it's tucked away in the trees as well. It was always said it was like a hidden track.
Well, it always was. It was built behind barbed wire. It was built in secret by the DDR to be the toughest track. They figured if you could slide here, nowhere else would faze you. And they're kind of still right in a lot of ways. So we've got a big entry today. 22 sleds will go because Laura Dees is not feeling well. So the British slider, who has won her only World Cup race on this track, will not, I'm afraid, go today. But we still have 22 sleds in the field, which is growing as the post-Olympic hiatus continues. You can see Joe Cicchini on the left-hand side. He's coaching a bunch of athletes. Among them, you saw Brazil's Nicole Silveira. And here is our start list. You'll see Nicole there in 8th place. Agathe Bessard, France, will be first off. Janine Flock of Austria goes second. First 3 come from outside the top 10 in the World Cup standings. Janine hasn't done all the races. Hallie Clark, 14th place for the teenager. And 23rd will be Liechtenstein's Katharina Eigenmann. Race 6 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. Martin Haven and Elizabeth Meyer watching the action as Agathe Bessard of France gets us underway for the 2nd week of racing here in Altenberg.
Agathe is from La Plange, France. Her dad was the track manager for many years, the ice meister there. Definitely another sliding family.
And coming from La Plange, she'll be used to driving a lot for her living, and that's exactly what you need to do here. This is not about gliding. Every corner here is a challenge.
Exactly. Really nice through 4 and 5. In this top labyrinth, you're just trying to do as little as possible to keep the sled accelerating while you prep for this big Kreisel.
So she is our first slider down this afternoon. A little bit more snow falling from the skies. We're due to get about a metre of snow over the next week or so.
Agathe is putting down a pretty good run here. A little bit of a skid there. We're going to see that from a lot of athletes today.
15th here in last week's race, and across the line 59.68. There's Lelda Predulena, the former Latvian slider, who is coaching her. 59.68 is the mark for our rabbit. Now, with 22 sleds in the field, only the fast 20 go through into the second heat. So the first job, if you're outside the top 10, let's say, is to make sure you're not outside the top 20.
Coming off of corner 9 here, she's looking okay, but there's a little bit of drift to that right side. You can see her head, toes popping out behind her, trying to bring that sled back to the sliders left so she can have a good entry into Kreisel. She flattens that pressure well. You can see that toe dragging behind her. Skeleton athletes steer with their head, shoulders, knees, and toes, bending and kind of moving the sled that way. So when the toes are on the ice, it's like pulling the e-brake a little.
Comme ci, comme ça, as they very probably say in France. Next up, and this is a landmark, her 100th World Cup start. For Janine Flock of Austria, just 33 years of age, made her debut in Whistler, of all places, in November 2010. How old were you then, Liz Meyer?
Oh, I was in 10th grade.
There you go. 5.77, and she is still knocking it out of the park. Start record is a 5.24. Probably won't get close to that today. She's not the fastest starter in the business, but this woman can drive.
However, she's made some big progress on her starts this year. She had back surgery.
Yeah,
and
again.
So she's come, again, and she's come back. She got a new coaching setup. They took the coaches from Benny Meyer and said, let's learn how to push the skeleton sled.
Yeah, her physical trainer is Frank the Tank, Franz Esterhammer, who is a former bobsled brakeman. 109 kilometers an hour. That's big speed, 68 miles an hour. They'll be up to 70 plus down at the bottom, 71.5 miles an hour. Out of the final corner, at a 58.51, that's a pretty decent run to start proceedings for Janine Flock. Now, worth bearing in mind that this is not just round 6 of the World Cup of 8 and a race she'd love to win. It is also the European Championships, and she has a really strong history of European Championship podiums. 3 times a gold medalist, 3 silver medals now, and 4 bronze medals. So 13 European Championship medals, and she is really eager to add to that today.
Running nice and deep, hopping on the sled, getting their hands tucked under her legs for aerodynamic form, as well as how we hold on to the sleds. Just a bit of drift in the straightaway. You can see the snow's coming down. Athletes will be trying to avoid that.
Of course, I can't add up. 3 and 3 and 4 is 10, you idiot, not 13. Next up, Kelly Delka from Puerto Rico. Now, again, Kelly raced here last week even, made the cut, 20th spot. That was her personal best on this track, and it's only her 15th World Cup race. Started a career sliding with the US team, and then broke away and is now the sole representative for Puerto Rico at the top level.
I was talking with Kelly last week, and unfortunately when she was flying over for the race last week, they lost her sled. So she ended up missing out on a day of OT, which is so tricky to be able to then race later that week.
And that's half your potential number of runs. There are 2 days, you can do 3 runs a day, so she was limited to just 3 runs.
That's difficult.
Well, she's been here a couple of times in World Cup and in Intercontinental and European Championship action as a European Cup action, so she has got knowledge of the track, but you always need to know what it's like this year, not previous years.
Yeah, and a little bit of oversteering that's happening in the Kreisel. You can see the back end of her sled just breaking away.
Well, she's battling with Agathe Bessard for position at the moment and has slipped behind the French slider. So Kelly may be on the bubble. Don't forget, 22 starters, 20 will go through, so 10% of our field will not get a second heat. And she may be in that danger zone. Well, Andrew Blaser was. He was the second man out of the shed in the men's competition, 24 deep, and he had to wait for another 22 sleds to find out whether or not he made it through, which he did in 20th place. And Kelly, colourful as ever, not just the suit, not just the helmet, not just the sled. That is her by nature.
Definitely. Here she comes out of corner 9. You can see the sled just kind of sliding left and right underneath her, just trying to get it under control. You're seeing both of her toes drop here. So you see her left toe and then her right toe and then her left toe, just trying to control the sled. Kreisel and Altenberg is tricky as an athlete. You're getting high to the roof and you're also going low to the short wall.
Yeah, so trying to balance out the peaks and the troughs. Like in driving a car, you don't want to be veering from one side of the road to the other. You kind of need to go down the middle as much as you can, weather permitting. 43rd World Cup race, her 30th. That's a landmark as a athlete for the Czech Republic now for Anna Fernstedt. 7th last week, but her career best on this track was a bronze medal, which she won when she was competing in the early part of her career for Germany. Jeff Payne, the coach, and after a drop-off in her performance over the last couple of seasons, particularly last year, after the Olympics, Anna took herself to the doctor, discovered that she has diabetes, so she now competes with a diabetes pump and measuring her blood sugar levels the entire time.
Yeah, and I read that not only does she wear a pump and she has a monitor she wears, also on race day she's doing thumb pricks 15 times. So just another added stress or another added thing that she has to be aware of on race day.
Absolutely, and of course because athletes are even more sensitive to nutrition than most other people, that's a major part of their life anyway. Just got another layer of complication with the diabetes, but Anna knows how to drive this track. This is one of the tracks that she will have learned on as a young slider from Germany. She grew up and went to school in Berchtesgaden, and that's how she got into the German program.
And she's now coached by Canadian Jeff Payne. She's on a Schneider sled, so she's got a good setup as well. Nice,
smooth lines as well. She doesn't have the fastest start, but she's trying to keep herself competitive ahead of Agat Bessar and Kelly Delka. She's
just a little bit sideways there and losing a little bit of speed.
Struggled to get near the medals with this first heat. 7/10 back, 59.21. Last week in 7th place. Again, 7/10 back was the gap between 1st and 6th in the men's competition. So if the gaps are similar in the women's, then she could be on for a top 10. However, top 6 even maybe. We'll have to wait and see what the others produce.
Here she is running over the crest. It is a marathon for us athletes. When you do load onto the sled, getting her head nice and low for a good aerodynamic position, fighting the exit of the groove a little bit. Coming out of corner 9, bit of a flop of the sled. You can see her just leaning a little bit to more get to that left side as she enters Kreisel. I think she stays just off the wall.
Second place at the moment for Anna Fernstedt, as Janine Flock is our first heat leader. 4 sleds in as we get to Kelly Curtis of the USA. Bronze medalist in Lake Placid. A huge day for the American slider. And her teammate, Austin Florian, had a great day today. A top 5 finish for him at one of the toughest tracks in the business. 5:63 getaway for Kelly.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a new head coach this year with Matt Antoine, but there's been some great results coming out of these American athletes this year.
And Tough Latour is now the head of the skeleton program rather than have to divide his time between skeleton and bobsleigh. So there's more influence as well coming from there. And as you say, yeah, bringing Matt Antoine in as their driving coach is definitely not hurting them. Just 400
Kelly's
back.
also unique. She's unique as she's based in Italy as well.
Yeah. Well, she and her husband moved to Italy in the summer. So the intention was to stay there and be close to Cortina once that track is built and open. 3rd best speed. She is 2nd ahead of Anna Fernstedt of the Czech Republic. Good looking run from Kelly Curtis. 6,400s back. Well, there is plenty of leeway there for German sliders to insinuate themselves in the lead group. That's a pretty nice looking run most of the way down for Kelly Curtis. It is her 15th World Cup start, so just 85 fewer than leader Janine Flock.
Got a little bit of got a few races to catch up.
Yeah.
Little bit of extra height here on the exit of 4. She bumps as she enters corner 5. just gets a little bit airborne. It's able to control it quite well. Again, 9 is throwing athletes a little bit to the right as they're coming off. And when you want to enter Kreisel, you want to enter it on the sliders left. It is integral for that corner.
That 4-5 transition seems a lot more benign than in previous years. I wonder if it's because Luge has not been here yet this year. Okay, sorry.
No, it is gentle, sorry.
Yeah. 5 sleds in, and that's obviously, you know, the killer curse then for Hannah Neiser, our Olympic gold medalist, and she wasn't racing here last week because she went back to the Junior Worlds as the Olympic champion and took her 2nd Junior World Championship gold in succession. 5:91 getaway for Hannah.
And Hannah, in winning the Junior World Championships, got an extra sled for the German team at World Championships for next week.
And that means it's highly likely that we will see one of last week's best performers here, Jacqueline Lurling, in World Championship action. And that was the thinking for sending the Olympic champion back to do, if you like, a bit of pot hunting, because the Junior World Champion in every discipline gets, from wherever you come, gets a free entry into the World Championships. So Germany have an allocation of 3 sleds, plus the Junior World Champion is German. So, yeah, it'd be great to see Jacka back in World Championship action. And Hannah Neiser still in the red. This is going entirely the wrong way for her, isn't it? This is like Felix Keisinger, who had a great fast start and just hemorrhaged time. Christian Bauder, not entirely sure about that. This is the Olympic champion, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I mean, this is not a rookie. That is not a good run.
A little bit of oversteering, but just bleeding time the whole way down the track. She was not gaining time like we had seen with Janine Block earlier.
Well, she's 100th behind Kelly Curtis of the USA, and she's a German on a German track and the Olympic champion. This is not a good first heat.
A little bit off balance. She's running there. She goes to load on the sled. I mean, it's an awkward position to try and move yourself, bent over, pushing something. Coming out of corner 9. Again, it's just pushed to that slider's right. See the toes tapping behind her. Just trying to get the sled back where she wants it to go.
Yeah, she's not got it at all, has she? She's working so hard everywhere.
And so low in Kreisel. So it could be a reason why speed wasn't quite there.
Yeah. All right, snow continues to fall here in Saxony. 6 sleds down, and we are sweeping the track after every 3rd sled, just to try and get some of the snow out the straightaways. And the deal here is to avoid going too close to the wall, where it all sort of ends up getting blown by the athletes. Joske Leconte in the orange jacket, holding the sled for Kimberly Boss. So Joske, a peer group slider with Elizabeth Meyer, and Kimberly Boss, one of the young sliders coming in during your career. Now 29 years old, bronze medalist on this track last week, Olympic bronze medalist as well in February. Her 49th World Cup start. Does she get another medal?
Kim Bosch really re-kick-started that Netherlands Federation. It's amazing to see her winning World Cups and Olympic medals.
And one of the few sliders still on a Bromley sled in what has become a near monopoly for village sliders, Kit.
Really nice 4-5, a little bit oversteering potentially. Kim has definitely her own style with her legs not together, and she just is moving a little bit on the sled, but she is real fast this way.
2400s up to 1300s up, and now dead level. She's dropping behind, losing speed to Janine Flock, but a yawning 6400s between 1st and 2nd, and she's going to be in that group, or she's going to be ahead. She will be 2nd at the line, but she's losing a lot of time in the lower part of the track. 5/10 back. Wow. It's interesting, actually. I was talking to Alexander Schlintner after the men's race, and he was saying he was expecting it to be bright and clear today, as it was yesterday, as it was in training, but the snow had a definite effect. And I said, so did you choose runners for harder, faster ice? He went, yeah, afraid so.
Yeah, and I also looked at the weather as well. I was like, oh, it should be a clear, nice day for racing, and now it's dumping snow.
Well, and that's why it's called weather forecasting, because random guess, it doesn't sound like so much of a job.
A little bit of extra height there on the exit of Kreisel, and she doesn't panic. She's like, okay, I'm going to take this tap and head into corner 11.
3 World Cup wins in her career, all of them in Winterberg. Did say to her after the third a couple of weeks ago, about time she learned how to win somewhere else. However, she's working on it. Next up, we saw her loosening up earlier on with Joe Cicchini, her coach, Nicole Silveira of Brazil. 17th World Cup start for her as a skeleton athlete. She started 1 as a bobsled brakewoman as well. And last week, 9th place, only 1 spot away from her all-time World Cup PB. So 5:69 getaway. Nicole's season is getting stronger and stronger.
Definitely, and she has not been sliding for all too many years, so she really has come into her own in this sliding sport and represents Brazil so well.
Last year she did 6 races. Her average position was 16.5. This year, 5 races in, 10.8. That's a big step change. She is about 5 or 6 spots on average better this season than last.
She's a registered nurse and is located in Calgary. And a fun fact about Nicole and I is we actually played volleyball against each other in high school.
Third best on the splits, losing a little down below the Kreisel. This looks like a 4th best run ahead of Hannah Neisser. No, drops behind Neisser and Anna Fernstedt. So that speed going away below corner 10. At the top of the track, still look pretty decent.
And I think because it's such a small gap, I mean, she's less than a 10th out of 3rd currently.
Yeah.
So there could be some movement that we're going to see in that second heat.
There was quite some in the first heat, or rather in the second heat in the men's competition, our first race. Big late height there in 4.
Just kissing that left wall as she heads into 5.
Still no Scorpions. Obviously, we're waiting for Jane Channel and Valentina Margalio, the Scorpion experts there.
You see the sled just skidding under her, trying to get it back online with her toes.
We talk about that Scorpion thing where one leg goes all the way over and touches the ice on the far side, as if it's deliberate, as if it's a driving thing. It's not, it's just the way you get thrown around. Next up, Mimi Reniva, a week away from heading to her happy place in St. Moritz, as we all are. What can she do here? Well, last week, 4th place, narrowly off the podium, but her best ever result on this track. She is a 4-time race winner in women's skeleton.
She's been riding 2 different sleds this season, so she's been going back between the Willi Schneider and the Bromley sled, depending on which track that they're on.
Well, that's nice. I mean, you see that sometimes in motorsport where you'll use a different kind of, a really different kind of setup, maybe even different machinery to suit different kinds of racing, but it's much less common in ice sliding.
Well, they're much different sleds to drive.
Yeah.
So you could be suited to one or the other. And so it really shows her ability as an athlete to be able to toggle between the 2 sleds.
Again, in car terms, it's almost like one is front-wheel drive and one is rear-wheel drive, and that's a very different thing indeed. Still in the lead, gaps coming down. Was 3100ths out of corner 7. It's now down to 1100. Second best speed, going to be close with Janine. Boom, 400ths of a second. Come on, Joe. Yeah, a bit of a thumbs up there.
Nearly a smile, maybe.
And Joe from Calgary, Alberta as well. Canadian, slid for Canada, then slid for Italy, his other native land. Set up the Snipers Skeleton Club in Calgary when there was still a track you could slide, and has encouraged lots of young athletes. He's developed new sliding equipment, new shoes, a whole new coaching regimen as well.
Into Kreisel, just I think maybe missed the first pressure a little bit. You see her relaxing into that second and third, not panicking, letting it flow. This track has been really difficult for Mimi in the past, and she's chosen to kind of rewrite the story here.
I'm on that call, love you.
Roots in Bulgaria from her mother's side of the family, Mimi Reniva. So next up is Suzanne Crea. Suzanne, the silver medalist a week ago on this track. Just her 8th World Cup. And this is very much her home track. She comes from BSV over Bernberg, just up the road. So on home ice. 2022 Junior World Championship gold, 2 silvers and a bronze for her as well. So she's been all right in the junior world.
Yeah, she's done okay. A very familiar sponsor on the top of her sled, Francesco Friedrich, supporting this athlete, which is really great to see within the sliding sports.
Yeah. Well, Francesco from Piana, just up the road here. This is his home track as well. See her foot slip on the block there as she is getting into the set position. And again, Elizabeth, another athlete who rocks the sled backwards and forwards. They're going to have to be really careful about that when they go into the team competition in the World Championships. 5:59 is the start.
This being her home track, she's gonna know when to relax and just let the sled fly.
3rd best start as well. You don't often see German sliders in the skeleton world with really quick getaways, Kaisinger being the big exception in the men's field. She does start quickly.
Yeah, not since Anja Huber. It's been a while since we've seen a rocket on the start for Germans.
Yeah, Anja Huber still around coaching. 500s off the lead. She's bringing it back. How good is the speed? Not enough. She's going to go out to 3rd place at the line behind Janine Flock. It is by 600s, so the top 3 covered by a 10th. Suzanne Crea is in the medal mix again, but it is Mirela Reniva who leads.
Another super close race. We're used to seeing that like on a pusher's track, like maybe Eagles or Winterberg. Not usually on such a technical track like Altenberg.
Well, we've been here so many times in the last 3 seasons. People are really starting to learn this place.
Definitely. You can see her loading onto her sled, getting her hands all settled, into corner 2, nice and around. She's doing kind of a banana position to make sure the sled is going.
A 10th out of the lead with our first 10 sleds down. 10 down, 12 to go. Only 10 more sleds will go into the race. Let's see who they include. Well, here is one of our red-hot favourites. Last week's winner, Tina Hermann, in her 70th World Cup race. And from 69 previous starts, she has 35 medals.
That's pretty impressive.
It is pretty impressive. She gets a medal 2 out of every 3 races she starts, basically.
That's really awesome. And watching her last week, she did an amazing 2 runs here on the track.
It's frankly a bit greedy as well. She's won 5 in a row on this track, dating back to the 2020 Worlds.
Yeah, she's pretty good here, that's for sure.
And before that win, she'd had 3 consecutive silver medals behind Jacqueline Lurling and Laura Dees, who won here in 2015. So Tina's never been far away when there's been a race on this track. 700s.
Small problem exit Kreisel, but really that's...
This is where she makes it, Elizabeth, in the last 3 corners, 58.34. It is always where she comes right back at you. And she can be behind, coming out of 14, over that brow into 15, and still kill you before she gets to the line. She shakes her head because of those mistakes. She knows she's made them. A World Cup points leader. And you know what? It's kind of a more relaxed Tina, I think, in the last couple of years. I think COVID made a lot of people appreciate even more what they have. Maybe it's that, maybe it's just, you know, as we mature, we kind of relax a little bit into it, but Tina is in a world where she's enjoying every day right now.
Exactly, and watching her go through Kreisel, she's so relaxed. Just quick little toe steers. That's like a token toe. It's not even...
She's just fun. Now then, let's get back to Canadian Jane Channel. 11th here last week, her 62nd World Cup start. First came here in the Intercontinental Cup back in 2013. 7 World Cups and 2 World Championships here. And her best result, a top 6 finish.
And she also, in that team event too, she won a medal.
Yeah, there was a bronze for Canada in one of those World Championship teams. Was that, oh no, it was a silver, wasn't it?
It was a silver,
It was a silver, yeah. It was bronze for Italy, silver for Canada.
And she's quite quick on the start as well. She had been dealing with kind of some injuries over the last few years, but they seem to have kind of cleared up, and seeing her return to that strength in the start.
Yeah. Well, 600 quicker than Mimi Reneva, who I knew the name of before I ever met her because she had a slew of start records in her young career. She's got the advantage, or did have the advantage over Tina Hermann, but now it goes away.
Just lost some speed in that Kreisel.
Yeah, and the exit, maybe too much work in the Kreisel. I actually saw her elbow out there into 15, and across the line, 5th place, 59 hundredths back. So, was she 9 hundredths ahead of Kimberly Voss, but about 2 tenths behind Suzanne Crayer, and so in fact 36 hundredths behind Suzanne Crayer in 4th. So there's 23 hundredths covering the top 4, and then more than that back to 5th place.
But a much better run for her this week than last. She was dealing with a gnarly cold last week, and so she was having some sinus problems as she went into racing. Super difficult when you go through pressured corners when you have some sinus problems happening. So I'm sure she's going to be much more pleased with the run she laid down today.
And of course, if you're a civilian like me and you've got a nasty cold with sinusitis, you just take lots of tablets. Athletes can't do that because they contain all sorts of things that you are not allowed to take.
Exactly. It's really important they watch what goes into their bodies, even just normal cold medication.
Yeah, and all of those things that dry your cold up, they're absolutely verboten. So yeah, you just have to suck it up, Buttercup, in a not very pleasant way. So Jane Channel 5th, as at the line we have young Hayley Clark, 18 years old Hayley Clark, in her 5th World Cup race. She already has 1 silver medal from the season opener.
Come on, Halsey, here we go.
Under 20 junior world champion last week, 4th overall.
Come on, Halsey.
She's 18. I mean, really, talk about overachieving. These kids these days, they got no respect for their elders. It's just fantastic to see. Fantastic to see her so young and so competitive and so chilled. I mean, how do they do that?
She's going to have such a bright future ahead of her.
It's like you when you first arrived, silver in your first race, gold in your second. I thought, oh, right, another overachieving kid. 5:56 getaway.
I'm glad to see these younger athletes coming into the sport. I mean, I saw Hallie when she first started, and she did start in Calgary as a Canadian and recently switched to be an American athlete.
Yeah, that's that opportunity you occasionally get if you are able to hold dual citizenship, as she does. Well, first time here at the top level in Europe, only 100th off, but look, the speed has gone away in the top part of the track.
A little bit of a flop there, and again, because she was at Winterberg last week, she is missing out on that extra week of training that these other athletes had.
Yeah, so 6 runs in training as a maximum. This is her 7th time down the track this year.
And this is a hard track to get into that many runs.
All right, just outside the 10. She is 800s behind Brazil's Nicole Silveira. 59.32 run for Hayley Clark. And she was due to be our 14th athlete off, hence the bib, but she is the 13th to actually start because there is no Laura Dees in the race today. They're asking the truck what's on her helmet. What, black tape on the chin? That's just black tape on the chin where you drag it on the ice, right?
Yes, we do. Our heads are so close to the ice that sometimes they do touch the ice. One thing about Hallie is she just laid down the 3rd fastest start as well.
Yep.
So not only is she young and has great potential. She's also quick on the start.
You could see in that replay at the start, actually, the tape that's under the sled has got cold and has just come off. So there's a flap of tape hanging down under the sled. When we're talking about positions being won or lost by 100th or two, that sort of aero drag is going to be an issue. So the problem with gaffer tape that everybody uses for everything in skeleton is that when it's cold, it stops being sticky. Next up, 50th World Cup start for Kendall Westerberg. I asked her this morning, is this marry, snog, or avoid this track for you? She said, kind of snog, kind of. 584 getaway. Let's see whether she likes it or loathes it today.
Kendall's been dealing with some nasty injuries as well. She's waiting for surgery. So the start is really not her strong point, but she can sure drive a sled.
Well, 17th here last week, but her World Cup best on this track is a 9th place finish. 10th at the start, but drifting away a little. Nice exit out of 9.
Just a little bit of oversteering in that second pressure. You can see her sled whip around to parallel.
And she is hovering right around Agathe Bessar and Kelly Delka.
A little bit of a flop there.
13th on the ice at the moment. This is going to leave her potentially down towards the bottom of the top 10, a 60.01. It's a long way from where she would like to be. Well, may not be the best day to celebrate her 50th ever World Cup start. I suggested to her that maybe after the race, Coach Tuffy Latour would spring for a bratwurst and even a glühwein at the stand at the Curve 9. She said, yeah, maybe a kebab leaving town.
He should do anyways.
A renowned kebab stand by the station
Yes.
here in Altenberg. It's basically where everybody eats because everything else is closed by 7 p.m.
This is true. Loading onto the sled. See, you're kind of wiggling a little bit to get that perfect position. Bit of a flop as she comes off of 14 into that uphill section. And then just a tap as she enters 15.
Yeah. I think today it's a void rather than snog. Okay, so Kendall Westerberg down and done. What about Brogan Crowley from the USA? 19th World Cup start for the 28-year-old from Great Britain. Again, she's had a number of surgeries over the years on ankles. I said to her when we got to the start of the season, no ankle surgery? No, not this year. Oh, great, so you're fully fit. Yeah, no, I just had 2 toe surgery. Okay, right. It's like some people get tattoos, she has surgery.
And her back, I had heard, is also acting up as well, so she's not quite fully fit either.
Well, 5:55, third fastest start. She is among our very fastest starters. And she is also dialing herself in to this new Matthias Guggenberger built sled. So
And on this setup, she won her first World Cup medal.
Yeah, having to relearn all of her instincts. 10th best speed, she was in the lead early on. Now 3/10 back. That's a big loss of time below corner 9.
Just a little bit of oversteering, I think, there in Kreisel.
Everything is sliding. The sled is sideways into just about every straightaway. And across the line, 9th place, 59.21. The impassive face of Googie. Man who knows all about back problems and back surgery, doesn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely some areas for Brogan to clear up for that second run.
Part British, part Barbadian. Part English, part Barbadian. There's her coach, her other coach, Martin Stukurs. Hey, you know what they say, if you're going to learn from the best.
Loading onto that sled, getting her hands tucked under to hold onto the sled. Coming off of corner 9, a little bit fighting. You can see whether that's movement. Her shoulders are lifting off the sled, and that's kind of like taking your hand off the steering wheel.
Well, you know what happens when you get the runners sideways? The same as when you go sideways on ice skates or on skis. It slows you down, and this is no different. Might not be quite as dramatic, but it has the same effect. When runners go sideways, speed goes sideways too. So Tina Hermann leads from Mimi Reneva and Janine Flock. 15 sleds down, 7 to go. Only 5 more places remain in the race. So now It is time to go fast or go home. Xiaodan of China, just 20 years old, her 9th World Cup race. And last week was her first race on this track. She may, I think, have come here with her development coach, Mark Wood, who worked for Team GB for a long number of years. Matt Weston, the last of his protégés, who won the men's race earlier. He then moved to China and then was helping out the German development program over the last couple of years. 12th place here last week. Let's see what she's got for us today.
You can hear Dirk Matchens, the coach of the Chinese team, cheering them off at the start. He's coach for a long time of the German team.
And personal coach of Tina Hermann as well, still. So manages to juggle the two of those. Ooh, very sideways from 2 to 3, from 3 to 4. And there's the result.
A little bit of a tap there.
Yeah, she's lost a quarter of a second already by the time she gets to the upper labyrinth. Nice and quiet run down into the Kreisel, but lots of waving.
But she just relaxed into it and allowed it to go around Kreisel firm.
That's one of the things about her, is that nothing seems to faze her. Sled goes sideways, okay, it's not the end of the world. You know, yo-yoing through the Kreisel, not the end of the world. She can just take it all in her stride. Which possibly is possibly not the attitude that Dirk's looking for. He might want them to be a bit more aggressive about it, but 200ths of a second there behind Brogan Crowley, who is tied with Anna Fernstedt, who is 500ths behind Hannah Neiser, the Olympic champion, who's 100th behind Kelly Curtis. So Kelly Curtis 7 to Xiaodan here in 11th. That is 6 sleds covered by 500ths of a second.
Just coming off of corner 2, the sled's going, just keeping her good form. It is sideways though. Just not a lot of sled changing in those with that toe steer.
Yeah.
Coming off of 14, we're going to see her keep perfect form, but the sled under her just get away.
Yeah, her body is going straight down the track. The sled's just curving away underneath her. Actually, my maths is rubbish. Kelly Curtis in 7th, down to Nicole Silvera in 12th, 900ths. Now then, a debutante, Eline Pelkmans of Belgium, 20 years old, 9th in the Junior Worlds last week, raced in the Youth Olympic Games in St. Moritz in 2020. Let's see what she has got.
And her teammate today won the Europa Cup in Sigulda, which is the first time a Belgium anthem has ever been played for a skeleton race.
Right. So, started 5:93, 17th best start in the field. She is our 17th athlete.
Big controlling of the pressures in that first bit of Kreisel.
Started sliding in 2019 and has competed so far in 4 Junior World Championships, including last week's.
She's a young athlete. She's got, I think, a long career ahead of her.
Yeah, her and teammate Colin Freeling both making their debut today, and it is a 17th best run, 60.85. That may not be enough to get her through. Of the 2 rookies in the men's race, Colin Freeling did not make it through. And Aileen, one of 2 rookies in the women's race. Let's see whether she does or does not. 60.85 at the moment. 17th of our 17 sliders. And only the top 20 will go through to the second heat.
Just misses the steer on that first pressure, and you can see the sled going sideways through that second one, just trying to get it back online. Bit of a tap as she enters 5.
There's a lot of good thinking going on here. I like the way that they're bringing new athletes into the World Cup with the lights, with the cameras. Things like a bib. You don't wear a bib with your number on at any other level of sliding. You know, there's all sorts of other elements going on. And to experience them with no pressure or expectation at all is absolutely the right thing to do with young sliders.
Totally.
Now, for Canada, Jacqueline Laberge Our 18th starter in the field, 6th only World Cup race. Last time here, only time here, 2018. That's a lot of sliding ago.
Her and Joe in one of their early slidings did a sliding tour, and they went all over to different tracks. I think they may have hit Altenberg, but that would not have been recorded on your
all right, well, she raced here in ICC in 2018. And, yeah, so they may have done paid training, but still, the knowledge is very scarce on this track.
Jackie's a Calgary native as well, learned to slide on that Calgary track that's no longer there.
Nice looking exit, 18th fastest starter. She was up to 17th on the splits. She remains ahead of Helene Peeltmans of Belgium. Trying to chase down Kelly Delker of Puerto Rico. 16th best speed. How close is she going to be to Kelly? Across the line, 17th place, 200s behind Kelly Delker. Well, she's got one of the two athletes behind her that she will need to have behind her to make the second heat. She will now have to wait another few sleds to find out whether she gets run to or not. So Kelly Delker is safe. The Puerto Rican athlete definitely will go in the second heat. There are two sleds behind her.
The athletes at the bottom of the track just picking up their sleds like nothing. They are about 30 kilos.
Yeah.
Bit of a skid and almost scorpion, Martin. You almost got it there.
Yeah, that was almost I don't know what a double scorpion is. Both of her legs were flying there. You do get thrown off that take on there, or the exit of 4, the sort of take on into little straightaway to 5, bounced in the air. And again,
Exactly.
you know, when there's an all-up weight of sort of 80, 90 kilos or 100 plus for the men, that's a lot of force throwing you up in the air. No wonder it takes speed out of the sled.
Definitely.
Third law of motion, equal and opposite reaction. If the sled flies up in the air, energy caused that, and that's energy you've lost. So our 19th slider, don't be confused by number 20, because Laura Dees did not go. So she remained on the start list until just now. Li Yuxi of China, 24 years of age. And again, for her, last week was her first official race on this track. Loving the helmet art. The Chinese have really been allowed to, or been able to, express themselves with their helmets this year. And Li's is no different. Really a great look. 13th place a week ago, her World Cup best result. So we know that she is a driver, not a glider.
And really, like you were saying about the helmets, it's an opportunity for an athlete to kind of express themselves in this sport.
5:67, that's a pretty decent getaway. Top 10 starts.
Sled's getting away from her just a little bit, and a tap into corner 5 there.
Only 200s off leader Tina Hermann at this stage, but those mistakes are going to catch up with her soon. There you go, 2100s back.
Tapped as she entered Kreisel. That makes the Kreisel really difficult.
See, you say tap, I say hit. When you hear that much, that's a hard tap.
I guess, yes.
It's like motor race. Everybody said, oh, you had a bit of a shunt. Yeah, barrel rolled end over end for 14 minutes. Yeah, exactly. Across the line she comes. Top 7 run.
With plenty.
Thumbs up, but not quite a smirk there from Dirk Matchens. He is a tough judge. 59.12. I mean, he's the Simon Cowell of sliding, isn't he? You know, you've got to go a long way to get a smile out of him. But she is happy with that, and rightly so, I think, Elizabeth. That's a really nice-looking run for most of the way down.
Yeah, the rank is good, but there's still a lot of room for her to kind of clean up and improve on. But this Chinese team is young. They're going to have a lot of years ahead of them in the sliding sports. Nice straight down the pipes, but she leads the sled over a bit too much to the slider's left and takes a bit of a tap as she enters Kreisel, which makes that first pressure really high. But you can see her toes tapping behind her to get it back under control. She's relaxed, she's chilled.
There is Li Yuxi of China. She's 7th, and down to Hanny Clark in 14th. That's 8 sleds, 2 tenths. That's going to be fun.
It's going to be interesting, that's for sure.
Sure is. Now then, talk about interesting. Last time we were here for 2 races, Valentine Margali of Italy crashed out of the fastest run and then came back the next week to take a silver medal. She crashed out of the fastest run last week. Stand by, Podium, 5:36, fastest start on the planet.
She said her relationship with this track is like total hit or miss, so I guess we'll see what happens here.
That was a hit, and one that we've not seen before. Now, this is the danger zone for her, out of 4 into 5, and that was nice and close. Look at that, 32 hundredths up still, but it'll be down into the teens by the time she gets out of 9 here. Wow. That hit and that confusion from 2 to 4, that has really hurt her speed. You never get it back if you lose it in the early corners, Liz.
No, it's so flat up there that you're trying to maintain as much as possible, and she's just bleeding speed here.
19th! Second slowest sled of all, and yet she had the fastest start, 59.46. So, did she and Willi Schneider gamble on it being colder, harder, and have gone for too small a contact patch for the slightly humid, snowy weather? Normally, normally the colder and the harder it is, the smaller a contact patch you can go with. I mean, out of 2, where the second loose start comes in, look at this.
Yeah, there's some problems at the entry of 2 as well.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit.
No one has hit there.
Out of control.
No one has hit there.
No, and you see the sled going sideways as well, and she's trying to bring it back to the left side for Kreisel, and instead of stopping it, she hits just before.
All right, well, so much for my theory. Crash out, silver medal, crash out.
Yeah.
It ain't going to be a silver today. Boy. Now then, Alessandra Fumagalli. 3rd Summer of Love going on her helmet. 4th World Cup start for the 24-year-old. She was 18th here last week. Alessia Cripper not here. Alessia is doing Europa Cup in Sigulda along with Kim Marmans. Not quite sure why and how that relates to Samaritz, but there we go.
Maybe prepping for the Sigulda World Cup.
It may be that Alessia and Alessandra have swapped places. Alessandra's points from the lower tiers may have crept her ahead of Alessia Cripper in the overall rankings. 100 up to 100 back. It's a good-looking first run.
Definitely not bad. Bit of a tap there. She enters corner 11. A little bit of airtime in 12.
But look at the speed compared to her teammate Valentina, who's just gone down. This is going to be a top 10 run.
This is not a bad run for sure.
Really not a bad run. Alessandro Fumagalli across the line, 7th place. 600s ahead of Li Yuxi and 400s behind Kimberly Boss in 6th. Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right, well, don't let it get to your head, but 18th last Friday. Wow, you're right, 7th today in the first heat. Absolutely right. Wow.
Maybe she just needed a couple more runs.
Yeah.
Coming out of 9 here, her head is so close to the ice. Nice and straight. Little bit of drift to the left side. Just brings her to a bit of a tap as she enters Kreisel.
Well, this is her 4th World Cup race, but it's her 2nd here in Altenberg. In fact, her 3rd here in Altenberg. So she raced in Winterberg and Altenberg last season, and her 2nd race here this weekend, or in this 8 days. And we get to our final slider, and really delighted to welcome Liechtenstein to women's skeleton. Have never seen a skeleton athlete from Liechtenstein before. This is Katharina Eigenmann was in the Junior Worlds last week, so she was not competing here. She made her Europa Cup debut back in December 2019. She is 21 years old and about 5'4", judging by the height of her compared to the sled.
She's not the biggest athlete, that's for sure.
No, she's raced in 2 Junior Worlds. She has got experience on the track. She has raced here in Altenberg 3 times previously in the junior categories. But look, it's all the big names. It's the lights, it's the camera, it's the all of the other headshots. I mean, you know, all of that nonsense. Let's see if she can calm those nerves and make a second heat.
And with it being European Championships as well, it just adds that like little bit of extra oomph to these races.
Yeah. 6:05. So let's see where she goes. She needs to match or better Jacqueline Leberge, who's in 20th place at the moment. A lot of work in 4.
Could be just these first big race jitters for her.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when you're in a 20-plus field, first heat nerves tend not to mean a second chance.
Really big pressures there.
Oh, and there's the first Scorpion of the weekend. And a really uncomfortable place, Exeter Kreisel. Well, she's not going to make the second heat from here, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
But great to see her make her World Cup debut. Liechtenstein bringing Bobsleigh to Winterberg, bringing Skeleton here to Altenberg. 61.27 slide. I don't know what the remainder of the season has for her, but I hope that is not the last we see of Katharina Eigenmann. I mean, it's not an easy track to make your debut on. There are much more comfortable tracks, aren't there? But
definitely, and really high in these first few pressures of Kreisel. Her toe is dropping, but it's just not affecting the sled as much as she needs it to. She's quite relaxed at the exit of Kreisel, but just a bit too much height there. Seeing the sled get airborne. And from there, a bit of a Scorpion, like you said. Hits a tricky Kreisel.
oh, she is.
Big smiles.
Yeah, she seems happy with life. So, Katharina Eigenmann brings our first heat to a close. It is, and news just in, no surprise, Tina Hermann who leads the first heat, but she has not been having it all her own way. She leads by 1300s from Mimi Reniva, 1700s from Janine Flock, with last week's silver medalist Suzanne Creyer lurking 2300s back. It's from those 4 that the medals will come, but Tina Hermann, last week's winner, is our favourite. Well, Hermann has not been beaten here since 2019 when Elena Nikitina beat Jacqueline Lurling and Yulia Kanakina, and Tina was not on the podium for the first time since 2015.
Wow.
In all that time, she has been off the podium once, and she has 5 straight wins here. You will get short odds on a 6th. You're going to need a scanning electron microscope to measure the odds. Tina Hermann leads, and our final sliders in the field will be Kelly Delker and Jacqueline Leberge. They make the cut, and neither of our rookies make it through, unfortunately. Alina Pelkmans and Katharina Eigenmann. Laura Dees did not start today's race. She's hoping to be much fitter for the World Championships coming up in a couple of weeks in St. Moritz. And our second and deciding heat in this women's skeleton race number 6 will start at 1700 local, 1600 GMT, and that's a almost sensible 1100 Eastern. From Elizabeth Meyer, me, Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew, thank you for being with us. We will see you in, oh my goodness, 32 minutes from now.